Well, good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to another of our Wednesday webinar series. Got a special webinar for you today, and we're going to next several Wednesdays, every Wednesday, talking about what small businesses' needs are with the current conditions that are going on. And a lot of the resources evolving day, we're going to go through a lot of them. And welcome, everyone. So I'm Kelly Bearden. I'm the director of the CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. And the SBDC has operated here for a good number of years, about 10 years as a host of CSUB. So part of the Central California region, which encompasses 15 counties in Central California, and we have 6 service centers in those regions. Many are operating with, they're all open, we're all open, and we're operating with limited conditions because of the situation on. So we're going to continue to do that for a little while, and we're going to continue to use resources like this, and we're going to use resources like one-on-one consulting online, and our consultants can meet with clients still. So we are open for business. What does the SBDC do? The SBDC does a variety of services. We do this type of service. We do a few other things too that we might be able to assist you with. Disaster relief is going to work with disaster relief applications, look at some opportunities that you might have, look at other resources, a wide variety of things. This issue is very encompassing and it really hits a number of different factors. We've been fortunately here in our community to have resources lately that have dealt with the HR side of this. Today, our focus is going to be more on the finance, on the economic and disaster loan that is now open, and in our view, very imperative that we do so. And we work some of the stimulus areas that we see that are going to happen, look at other funding opportunities that are out there, and look at current conditions that maybe lenders are dealing with. In addition to the number, touch on the number of federal and state programs that are available to help your employees. We'll have a complete list of resources afterwards. So if you need some additional resources, additional links, this program will be made available to everybody who attends, whether they or so it's going to be there to kind of assist you. And what we're really looking for also is your feedback. We're looking for your information, and you'll just let us know what you want to hear, next week. The topic are really, really kind of puzzling to you at this time, at this really. So we'll continue this relief and be back. It'll be back under these particular Zoom numbers to join. A couple of Wednesday webinars, but let's get on with this one. Today I'm going to be joined a little bit with our special guest, Keith Bryce, the president and the CEO of State Development Corporation. We hope to have time at the end for question and answers, and Keith will talk about the issues that are coming up as well. So let's get on with it. And first of all, what's new today? Well, is the National SBDC Day, where we designate one day across the country. It's kind of difficult to celebrate it this year, but I at least wanted to recognize the work that our SBDCs do around the country, the 1,000 centers, and what we do. There's a number of stimulus kind of through the congressional process at this time. We're going to talk a little bit about stimulus, but it's important to know what's out there. So, and they're going to change and evolve on a daily basis. So we'll be there to kind of assist you with that. Yesterday, the IRS announced that they will delay the tax for 90 days. So for individuals, that's 3 months until July 15th. If you're a corporation LLC, those have been done 15th. I'm not exactly sure of that status. As of yesterday, we found statewide disaster declaration is going to include every county, and the state of California, which is different from what happened March 12th, first came out. We had about a dozen counties or contiguous counties that could actually apply for the Small Business Administration disaster loans. And additional resources are happening daily. So it's really important to be tuned in into what's going on, what's happening today. Let's talk about the first steps. And first of all, you know, I'm one of the worst, because I kind of would use a phrase called scared. That's not anymore. It is definitely safety first these days. You know, working in an environment, you know, you say, well, you're not in a construction, you're not working in a mine, you're really going to get a paper cut. So safety third, but not anymore. It's safe. Your first step is your safety, the personal safety of your employees, your family, and yourself. So protect all. And by other things that are important to you. If you're a business owner, look at your brand and protect your particular brand. Hopefully, and it's anticipated, this is going to be a very long problem. Hopefully they're right. And while we will see significant and very hurtful, small businesses will rebound. They're resilient. But protect your brand. If you've spent a considerable amount of time and effort working on the particular brand and dealing to customers, it's important that you do it now. And that is why it is important probably to follow the guidelines from state and federal sources. You know, start talks with your landlords and others, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But everybody knows the situation you're in or going in. We're at the very beginning of this economic loss that's suffering for most businesses. Officially, it has been about since I believe January 31st when the declaration came out. And really, we're looking at some areas that are really, really hit hard, and that is your travel, your hospitality, and your entertainment areas. Sure, there are business owners out there that say, and that's not my particular background, but those are at least the three big ones at the point. So start your talk with your landlord and others. And it's time to start whipping out plan B, and then potentially be able to think, and rather than just maybe the immediate need, but to start thinking about, you know, things that you can do. The 100 and so people that are on right now, you're fortunate. Unfortunately, we had register for an event that we just started publicizing yesterday afternoon. And that is why all resources that we have here to you. So when we get to a safe spot, seek opportunity, because there's going to be opportunity out there. The world as we know it might change somewhat after this, but there's going to be opportunity. And whereas hopefully it's not in some of the real negative cases that we see an opportunity with selling, hoarding goods and things, but there's going to be some really good legitimate opportunities that you'll want to look at eventually. Stimulus. The stimulus, and even poverty state, it's coming. We've had an initial 8.3 billion for health and vaccines development. And it's just not going to be, it's the tip of the iceberg. They're looking at potentially up to $1 trillion. About 12 years ago, we had the financial meltdown in 2008. If you look back at that stimulus, it was nearly 800 that was actually used to stimulate. And a lot of that will not just be coming out of taxpayers' coffers and other pockets that we're going to be repaying. Some of it's going to go to industries to actually maintain air service, for example. The airlines are seeking $50 billion, and the latest in that is actual loans, guaranteed loans that the government makes. So there's going to be there's a lot going on in both houses. There's a lot of ideas that are floated with cash payments, potentially payroll tax reduction that impacts employers, and so much more. And it's going to be something that we talk about next week, probably in much greater detail than we do this week. So that's going to be, keep that in mind as far as stimulus. SBA has, and really we're going to talk a lot about this SBA disaster relief lending program. Typically, SBA disaster programs are usually tied to some type of a physical act, a hurricane, a tornado, a flood. This is extraordinarily different, obviously. As of yesterday, statewide in California, it was designated a disaster area. Individuals and businesses, or excuse me, businesses are now able to actually apply for relief, and we're going to go through that process in great detail. I think it's really important from the standpoint to get out there and be first. Right now, about 10 or 12 states nationwide that the SBA has designated. I guess it's the silver lining in being infected to this extent that the state of California has by the coronavirus. So one thing that we're going to really touch on a lot is that these are working capital loans for small businesses that have suffered substantial economic injury. Now, I know many of you out there have not suffered a substantial injury yet, but we're looking at, a couple of months probably, and even more of having very reduced or no sales at all. So that is coming. The SBA economic injury disaster loans will offer up to $2 million of assistance. They can provide vital economic support to small businesses, and they're designed to cover for revenue that you would have had coming in. So it's up to $2 million. Use it to pay your fixed cost, your debt, your payroll, your accounts payable, bills that cannot be paid because you don't have revenue coming in. We'll get into some of the dynamics of the loan, but one thing that probably should mention times is this isn't a typical process to where you will walk in and say, I need $50,000. The SBA will determine exactly how much you're impacted by this disaster based on information that you provide them, and we will cover the information. So been getting a lot of calls at the office for these 0% loans, but right now the interest rate for small businesses without credit elsewhere, whereas nonprofits, it's 2.75. So SBA economic injury loans offer long-term repayment up to 30 years. I don't think that's going to be an unusual case. I believe 30 years. It's going to be a much shorter term, but it'll be determined on a case-by-case basis. And as SBA likes, it's based upon each borrower's ability to repay. So what is the process? The process, we experienced this to fortunately, a much lesser degree, far substantially lesser degree with the July 5th Ridgecrest 7.1 earthquake. Say that 3 times real fast. And so what happens is made to determine if the disaster actually has affected small businesses. So what will typically that relief is actually found in many times physical disaster loans where you've had a hurricane or a tornado come through and level a community. But again, this is what we're talking about today, and it's the economic injury disaster loan. I have an indication of what you can do. Now, there's multiple ways to actually file this form. You're looking at the disaster business loan application, half of that. And if you do look at that, you'll see if, number one, are you applying for physical damage or economic injury? You're actually applying for the economic injury because that's how you're going to be impacted. Now, one important thing to note is that there are multiple ways to apply. I actually recommend that people apply online. When you go in and you get your application in, you're in the queue, you're in the system, you're given a number. Whereas I think if you mail this in where you can actually physically mail it to, or you can fax it to Fort Worth, Texas, there's a delay that could impact your ability to receive the funding. So the disaster loan application is going to cover a lot of aspects. It's going to actually provide the contact information. It's going to provide a lot of the aspects of what you need. You see up to the first 8 lines of that, but it is a double-sided form. I recommend people actually, they don't have to necessarily fill it out, but look at it in advance. And if you have any questions when you get online, then you've been able to answer those. So it's something that we're going to see a lot of people that are going to have questions. And please note that the events throughout the state of California are here to help you with this process. So after you fill out the first 2 pages of this, and it's a note, it will ask a lot of questions. And even I still have questions about the process because, and this will be a great question for Keith Bryce later, with traditional loans, most traditional SBA loans are actually made through a bank. That's their guarantee loan program. The largest SBA lender in Kern County works a program that's fixed asset based and actually does involve some direct lending indirectly with the SBA. The disaster loan program is a direct lending program. Correct. It is absolutely 100% coming from the federal. But there are issues that have come up last few years regarding some of the individuals that have not repaid their federal debt in the past, be it a student loan or other things that have precluded them from using that. On the application, I do not see that question. So I am assuming right now, based on the application, that that isn't an issue. But they will get into other issues about bankruptcy because the government, whereas they're here, and Keith and I have discussed this, where we think it's going to be a little bit more lenient in the past because of the severity of the issue, that you know, they still look at it as, and they look at your ability to repay. And as we'll talk about, they also look at collateral. So moving on to some of the other things that you're going to be faced with. And again, print it out, look at it. If you can answer all the questions, get online and get it done. But one of the things that they'll ask you to fill out are a number of forms. And this one is actually a fee compensation form. It's based on some unscrupulous practices to where individuals paid a lot of money to have some paperwork done that they could have had done for free. So pretty basic form there. So the personal financial statement, pretty much a staple of all. And Keith, jump in anytime you want to comment on any of these forms or paperwork. The personal financial statement is a form that I think most people that have borrowed or have seen. If you fill out a home mortgage loan, you fill out a variation of that. If you do any lending at all, you will fill it out. Actually, just list your assets that you own on this day. So if you were to fill it out today, it'd be March 18th, 2020. And also, and the liabilities again are not your immediate expenses like your electric payment, although that could be grouped into accounts payable. But your liabilities are generally your longer term debt, your small business loans. It could be a lot of other aspects that you see here.
Kelly, the only distinction I would add is that keep in mind there is a personal financial statement and then there's a business financial statement. So if you're incorporated or you're in a partnership, you may have a separate financial statement. Do not list your personal assets on your business financial statement. So just take the time. If you have access to an accountant, if they have the ability to provide you with an updated business financial statement, or if you use QuickBooks, use that. But the personal financial statement is something with your personal assets only. I want to emphasize, like Kelly, that this is a program that there's no fee to prepare an application. So as these disasters happen from time to time, there are individuals that will come out of the woodwork indicating that they can get you a disaster loan for this dollar amount for this fee. Please be
Thank you, Keith. So the next form that we'll look at as part of this is a very common lending. It's a request for transcripts of tax returns. And this is where actually happens is that the IRS actually will provide the SBA the tax returns. They will ask for you to send them in also, most likely after you do your initial, but actually they will be verified with what they get from the IRS. So it is kind of important, isn't it, Keith, that the two match?
It's important that they match. Keep in mind, from time to time, you've gotten an amended tax return. You provide the SBA with the original, not the amended. The amount not match. Then you have to go through the process of clarifying why they do not match. Simply put, give them as much accurate information as you can.
And then next step is going to be a schedule levies. And Keith and I discussed this a little bit this morning with one of his clients, and I come up with the idea this is going to be very important. The SBA in the past determines the amount of money that you need is going to be based on the bills that you have. You won't have revenue to pay that. So what they are going to be providing with the economic injury loan is money to pay these bills. So when you look at a schedule of liability, you see where it says the creditor and the amount and the date and all that other fun stuff. And if you're current or delinquent, but it's important to list other things. I would list other things as far as a rent payment. You have a legal obligation, even though even if you're month to month, put it down. But you have a legal obligation there for your rent. And unless you get some type of concession from your landlord, then you will actually need to get some type of revenue to pay that. So a lot of different things. You'll list your debts. You'll list car loans that you have in the business. You can list a variety of other factors, but list what your debts are. List what your fixed costs mostly that are going to be moving forward that you're going to be paying, which is your liability insurance potentially. And also not knowing what's coming insurance-wise, but you're going to have expenses, and make sure you list all of them and be complete on this, because I really think it's an amazing factor in the amount of revenue that you will receive. So that's a little bit about the paperwork that needs to happen.
Kelly, I just want to emphasize, do not be intimidated by the application or the paperwork. The majority of this information you have access to, or very easy access. I know in the past, the SBA has really been around disaster monies out in the hands of the small business owners. So if you are lacking a document, please reach out to the SBDC here or any other partner you may, whether it's an accountant, whether it's a bookkeeper, to help you with that information and or application. The Zone Loan program is one of the best programs that the SBA does have, and that is a direct loan program to you.
So after you submit your information, there will be likely some additional information that the SBA requires. And one of it is, and kind of catches people off guard, is that let's say you're in a partnership or an LLC or corporate owners, and each of them own 20%. It's important to note that all 5 of them are going to have to resubmit their most recent tax returns. And right now, the most recent tax return is 2018. So that would be the one that you would probably, in most cases, send in. Now, if you don't have, a 2018, what I would do is 2 things. Number one, I work on catching up on my past tax returns if you're behind in 18 or 17, and get that ready. But in the interim, I would submit a profit and loss for December 31st, 2018, which is going to tie to your tax return that you eventually submit to them.
One thing about different partners and partnerships, and some of the thoughts behind having each 20% submit the tax return is you may have a scenario where one of the 20% partners is making $2 million a year and asking or looking for assistance in a disaster program where they may have what's called credit elsewhere, ability to self-finance through this disaster. So again, the program is set up for small business, but they're truly set up for small businesses that are in need. So just be aware of that if you do have a partner that is showing some substantial income.
So on this, most likely you're going to need to, what happens oftentimes is that you will go through this process, and let's say you think that you need 2 months worth of relief, and all of a sudden it turns into 3 months. And maybe your customers don't come back as quickly as you anticipated, maybe some. So what can happen is you can actually provide monthly sales on Form SBA 1368 for an increase in the amount of the injury. Another factor that comes up at times is that you need to submit current profit and loss. But the timing of this disaster, March, I would assume that the SBA would accept 12/31, the end of the year. Now, if this would have been in September, they would probably want to see how your operations are going on this year.
What would also happen is if you do in fact have the ability to provide fairly current financial statements, if you were to be able to provide, let's say, a February or even a March statement this year, and then you looked at your March statement last year, and if you saw a significant change in your gross revenue, then that's a clear indication that you've been impacted by the market.
So disaster loans, do you need it? They are for businesses who cannot get financing elsewhere, which probably is going to be pretty common given the state of things. But you still need to demonstrate the ability to repay eventually and pledge collateral if you have it. And they can only be used for disaster-related expenses. So there are collateral requirements. Physical loans really don't apply to this, but injury disaster loans over $5,000 require some form of collateral. They'll look at your personal financial statement. If you have collateral and don't pledge it, that could be an issue moving forward as well. You know, I think disaster loans aren't for everyone. There's other options that are still out there, and we're going to talk about those in a few minutes. But the benefit is it provides that working capital to get your business, and it provides long-term low interest rates in order to help with cash flow. Now, the negative aspect of a disaster loan is that it's still a loan and it's still debt. And that debt is something that you're going to have to carry, and you're not really getting an economic benefit for that debt, such as if you were buying a piece of land and building, moving a rent payment. But in this case, all you're doing is surviving. So you're going to have to deal with the cash flow aspects of as well. Again, they're direct from the government, unlike traditional type loans. Businesses of any size are eligible for funds. So it's not only small business, but that's the people that we want to talk to. Nonprofits, schools, and charities, if you work with them as well. Small businesses, agricultural cooperatives, also eligible to apply. At the SBDC, we can help you by assisting you to package the financial information that are requested by the SBA. We can advise on the immediate funding options for assets that might not be covered by the disaster. If you're looking to jump in, say, wow, there's a great opportunity that I have, again, that is not going to be covered by this. But maybe someone Uncle Harry says, well, I want out of this and I'm going to sell you my assets for 50 cents on the dollar. There will be resources that are available in the SBDC after the debt is added. We can assist with marketing and social media presence after we get everything up and going for those that are actually shutting down. Use experience and some of the quirks of the disaster process. I kind of like the quirks out there. For example, I think I learned from the Ridgecrest earthquake that if you reject a loan that's offered to you by the government, it will not be available to you later on. So what you want to do is when you get, maybe it's something that you think that it's too small, maybe it's you've changed uses or you don't think you need it. If you don't need it, that's great. But don't reject a loan until you know you want for later. So, and then we have other free advising that's available to assist with your business and kind of help you after the disaster. So that's a little bit about the disaster process, and there's going to be a lot of that going on, but there's still other funding issues. There are people, I'm sure, out there that are looking for other funding still, and they probably even came in. I've had a couple of clients that have called and said, gee, I just submitted my application last week. What's going to happen now? And whereas I believe case by case basis, I know Keith has a lot more information on that particular aspect and other things as far as continuing to pay your loan.
Yeah, a little bit about what we do here, and I'm Keith Price with Midstate Development, is we run the local certified development company, and we offer what's called the SBA 504 loan program. It's primarily for fixed assets for building and large pieces of equipment. And it's been business as usual. We have several applications pending on clients that had decided that they were going to buy or build a new location or buy some equipment, and they wanted to take advantage of historical low rates, along with the fact that the equity requirement for a real estate, if it's non-special purpose, is 10%. So in these times, believe it or not, there are still folks moving forward with capital purchases. They have a little bit of confidence that this event will pass, and they are trying to take advantage of historical long-term rates. I want to just go back to that disaster loan program real quick. Those rates are phenomenal, and I cannot encourage you enough to go through that process. Now, the important thing is to analyze, do you need funding or do you need temporary relief? And that's important because there are, if you have an existing loan, I'll give you an example of our loan program. We have borrowers that they have cash, they have working capital, but they have with the revenue going forward. So they're looking at, well, you know, I have enough to make payroll, I have enough to pay certain payables, get a relief on my mortgage payment that will help me for a time period. So they have the ability to come in with the SBA 504 program to ask for a deferment. Now, it's got to be a reasonable request. Now, if you know you have a business and you're sitting on $300,000 or $400,000 worth of cash and you're asking for a deferment, then now you have the ability to continue to make payments. But if you have that same scenario and that cash is allocated for other payables that are clearly defined, then you have the ability to come in and request a deferment of mortgage payments on your existing SBA 504 loan. We can do them for up to 6 months. You have to, again, build a case, and the case is pretty easy to see if you're showing where you're not going to have the revenue coming in. It's common. We went through a lot of this during the 2008 recession, where we had businesses that could not make the payment or just in a short period of time. We were able to defer it to, and it's not forgiveness, it's deferment. We add the payments on a re-amortized basis after a few years there. I strongly only encourage if you have SBA loans with your lender and you see that you're going to have a problem making payments. Today is the time to go down and sit with them. Let them know that I'm having some issues and perhaps I need line increase, I may need to have my line termed out, or I may need payment relief. As we will ask for the financial information so we can see that what you're stating, yeah, my sales are going to be down because of, and this is where my sales were last year. And the process again is fairly easy because everybody's being impacted by it. We have a little million in loans outstanding. We've looked at our loan portfolio and we've identified clients, whether it's a restaurant or hotel, gas station, or somebody in Kern County in the oil business. And didn't really talk about that earlier, but besides the virus, we are being impacted by the price of oil here in Kern County. And that may warrant a deferment and or a disaster application. We've identified locally, again, in our portfolio here, about a dozen businesses that we really feel are going to be impacted. And we're preparing for you to reach out to them and hopefully they'll reach out to us to ask us for some type of assistance. So I really want to leave you with, there is help out there. If you get to it early, feel free to reach out to the SBDC here or reach out to your lender. And if you have an existing mid-state loan, reach out to mid-state.
So if there are other funding opportunities out there, there are still micro-lending programs, and we have a long list of programs if you either do not qualify or use your funds rather than for working capital for acquisition or some other reason. So our state of California has funding option, what is called the iBank, and all these resources are going to be emailed to those that fill out a survey, and we will actually send out a ton of resources, other resources, and some of the things that are also going on. But the state has their iBank, they have their CalCap program, and they have a few others that are out there for that purpose. You know, I think a lot of people are going to start looking at alternative funding, and once we get past this immediate need of trying to get people out in front of the disaster loans for those that need it, you know, there's a lot of alternative funding that's out there. The SBDCs work with a lot of clients for crowdfunding, for example. A lot of people are going to have money that they did not spend on travel and other uses, and they're going to be home. And they're going to be looking at crowdfunding sites, and they're going to be looking to help small businesses that they frequent. There's holidays going to be out there. Does your business take gift cards? Are you in the hospitality industry? You know, a great promotion if say you own a restaurant, who maybe discontinue dining room service and work on takeout or other form of meal delivery. With self-isolation, there's a lot of duty to get people food that they're going to get tired of cooking, trust me. And they're going to get tired of eating their food, and they're going to want yours. So those are the challenges. Mother's Day is coming up. We have graduations that are going to maybe occur. Going to be a lot of opportunities for you to maybe gift and to try to keep those businesses that you really like, businesses that need and want to continue to frequent.
Kelly, one thing I want to make sure the listeners also be prepared for is start right now documenting any significant changes to your business, whether you've lost one customer, 5 customers. And the reason why I'm saying this documentation is this will pass. Memories are difficult to have sometimes. And 2 years when you're meeting with the lender and they look at your financial statement and they see in 2020 your sales were dropped. Well, everybody knows what happened. But they're going to want to see some specifics. So if you indicate, yeah, I lost this order of 50,000 units for this client on this date, then you'll have that documentation going forward. So takes a few minutes to do that, but make sure you capture that for the future.
Yeah, and so, well, that's going to kind of wrap up the funding aspect of it. We do want to on the resources that are out there, particularly from the state, and these are more HR related issues. The feds are actually talking about a type of family leave or family medical plan as part of the stimulus. It's going to be interesting to see how that works with other programs that are already in place. In California, we have, and resources will be sent to you. I apologize, there's not a slide up here for this, but there will be resources that detail, or you can Google the California Paid Family Leave Act. And that is basically a program that affects all employers, provide the job protection, but people can leave work for up to 6 weeks, and it provides some form of paid leave. You file a claim with the EDD. The California EDD is a very valuable resource, and I would be looking on their website if you have HR related issues and you have employees that you're concerned about. I know that the governor has mentioned that he is waiving the week-long period for state disability, whereas you used to have to wait 1 week before you could actually draw a claim, and that first week is now taken away. I believe that is also happening also with unemployment insurance. Many employers are faced with the reality that they need to lay off people in this crisis. And I think if you're not laying off people, you're one of the people that are doing rather well, perhaps maybe a grocery store, some other type that is actually holding their own or doing better in this crisis. So there's the California Paid Family Leave. There's also the Family and Medical Leave Act, and that's for larger employers, generally 50 employees. And the big distinction there is that it does provide job protection if you have over 50 employees and they want to take family and medical leave. Again, it can be double, actually, the paid family leave and go to 12 weeks. It doesn't provide the paid leave. So there's provisions for that too. You can Google that, the Family and Medical Leave Act. There's the California Family Rights Act, which is basically employers for 20 employees. That is pretty much similar to the Family and Medical Leave Act. So those are issues that are coming up that people are seeing and worrying about how they're going to actually deal with employees. And it's a really tough situation when we talk here at the SBDC about employers that are actually going through this process of needing to lay off people. And there are some strategies that we talk about, and it's strategy that best benefits the employee. Do you want to cut back their hours, or do you want to just lay certain people off? And there's no good answer in that, but for some people it works better than others to work in part-time, and others it works better to lay them off and they get through this. So another important safety note on the medical side of things is that the Cover California. Cover California is now open, has opened again, and will until April. So if you have issues with healthcare, that is something a resource that your employees might want to know, but it could be an excellent resource that you give to your employees and try to assist them in handling this slowdown. So just a couple of things on the employment side of things and the HR side of things. There was some really good resources in the Wall Street Journal regarding what employers can and cannot do. And since we're having a technical issue opening up your questions, of which there are a lot of them, we will get to those individually one by one. So we can't open your questions and take questions at this time. I apologize for that. Let me give you a few questions that people asked related to HR. If you have any other questions, you can always sign up for free with the SBDC. And that would be our website of chubsbdc.com. And you're able to sign up anywhere in the Central California region from that website. So a few of the questions, and there's questions on working remotely, on travel, on the job. But here's one that I think is kind of more common. Requires me to have a lot of close contact with many customers. Am I protected if I say I can't perform my job? And the response from a professional at the Wall Street Journal, a workplace safety law firm in Atlanta, Georgia, says that workers are protected from retaliation from an employer if they refuse what they consider to be an work assignment. It becomes less straightforward, though, if a reasonable employee would otherwise deem the assignment safe. So an example they give, a hotel housekeeper has received the necessary training to protect them against the virus using gloves and equipment. It might not be considered reasonable to refuse to clean a hotel room. So there's an example. If I come down with COVID-19, do I have to tell my employer? As employers out there, you might want to know that. Need sick time. And the answer on this one is there might not be a legal requirement, but there's certainly an ethical requirement. If you work in an office or interact with colleagues in person, it's a good idea to alert your company so managers can tell others and to help soften the spread of these. If you work remotely, you have no contact with colleagues, clients, or others on your job. It might not be necessary. You might just need to say you're not feeling well. Try to find you another question or so. Can my employer take a temperature at work? Well, that's a good question that's answered by the Equal Employment Commission. According to the American with Disabilities Act, measuring an employee's temperature generally is considered a medical examination and usually bounds of what an employer can do or require.
The only thing I would add, Kelly, is these are different times. And if you are working for a medical provider, maybe you're a critical care nurse, or you're working in a cancer facility, I would think there would be the ability to have your employees tested.
Keith Bryce might have read this article, but I haven't seen him with the Wall Street Journal in his hand, because the but is, but in an especially severe or widespread influenza outbreak, such as possible, that rule is likely to apply to the coronavirus as well.
Right.
So we're running out of time here. I apologize we can't get to your questions in person. What I do want to let you know is that we're going to be here every Wednesday tackling what is the most critical, what we think most critical need of the time. Right now, we think it is the economic injury loan. We think it's important to get in there. With the packages mentioned, having more money available hasn't been passed. It is one of the things that they are considering and putting on the table. And until there's not enough money there for everybody, considering putting more money in. So it's crucial that you get in and apply, generate a need, deal with the additional requests that they have. If you need help, there's plenty of help out there for you. So please take that into consideration.
Kelly, what's the website again?
The website is
sba.gov/disaster.
That's correct. It is there. So go to the website, apply again for the economic injury, and you're set. Please fill out your survey. Let us know what you want to hear next time. And for Keith Bryce, I'm Kelly Bearden. We're here to help. Let us know. Have a great and safe day. Goodbye now.